Hey, what's up, everybody? Yeah, Mark.
No, you threw me off there for a second.
Sorry, I'm so used to just introing. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, just welcome everybody back into episode, what is this, 116 of the Game Junction Podcast. We've got two special guests here. We've got ThunderStash Gaming down below.
What's up? Happy to be here. Lots to talk about. I mean, this has been a whirlwind week.
Yeah,
so there's no shortage of topics.
Yeah, there's plenty to talk about. And then we got returning guest Andre of GameXplain. How's it going?
It's been busy, as you probably know. Only too well.
It's a good busy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've seen the content that you got out and stuff on everything. The grandparents' reaction, I loved it.
Thanks, appreciate that. Yeah, it was fun to see their take on everything.
That was really, really cool. So I guess we'll go ahead and kind of start out of the gate, showing off the video that everybody got to see. And if you didn't get to see it, you can see it now. For our audio listeners, head on over to the video, or I apologize for the 2 minutes that this video takes up, because it doesn't show much, but it shows enough to talk about. So it's pretty cool. We'll go ahead and roll that.
Yeah, definitely like the stealth drop that they had on this.
Right, shadow dropped it like crazy.
Yeah, poor. Although everyone who said it was coming that day got destroyed for it not being announced in advance.
Yeah, right.
I think what I really liked about this trailer is that it says nothing. There's no narration, but it illustrates everything, right? In that, bigger and better.
What are those little markings above the minus and plus there? What is that?
I assume probably some volume annotation, maybe.
Okay. Oh,
yes. It says volume. Okay.
You paused it too early.
Thought I was pointing something out.
It's like some ancient symbol or something.
So, I mean, obviously, one point to talk about here is the new kickstand, which seems to be maybe a better design. What I find with my Switch OLED is obviously it is way better than the other kickstand. Yeah. What I do find sometimes when I'm setting it down is that it does every once in a while, if it's not on like a direct hard surface, say like I've had it before, like laid up there in bed with me, actually using the Pro Controller. I've done that before a couple of times, that it does end up falling down flat. So I'm curious if this changes that any.
Yeah, I will just say, looking at it, it looks better than the original Switch, but like I don't know if it's better than the OLED.
That's what I said.
Yeah, it looks flimsier, honestly. It may not be. It's probably fine. It just I don't see like any great benefit to it right out of the gate like I did with the OLED, with fixing an obvious problem. It feels more like we need some way for people to know this is a Switch 2 from the back. Let's just cut a hole in the
yeah. I thought the same thing, because it literally looks like a cutout of like how the OLED one is, and it's a little interesting. I thought might not be as good of a design as I thought it was. I did a little reaction short to it. That's exactly what I said. So I guess we'll have to see and test it out in person. But
yeah, I guess so.
I guess it's hard to tell. I assume it depends on whether or not it's going to be made of all plastic, or it's going to be part of the metal. Same with the frame.
Oh,
yeah. Actually, did it go farther? I guess the OLED can go about that far back too. So all right. So
that's it. That's all the color customization you get.
So obviously we've got the spot here where that connector is going to go in. We've got this little button back here. It says C, or is that just an O? I can't tell. It may be the way that I paused it. But I mean, obviously the Joy-Con is slightly bigger, but pretty much everything on the base of the unit is the same, obviously, with the buttons.
Yeah, outside of that blurred out C button.
Yeah, the blurred out C button is the what we don't know about.
Yeah, I will say, like, they found a way to present this very similar looking hardware in a way that kind of still feels a little exciting, which is impressive. Like, the Joy-Con is still basically the same thing, just bigger, magnetic now, and that new mysterious button that they didn't even talk about. And the mouse feature.
There's got to be a reason they didn't mention that button. That button has me thinking there's something special about it. It's got to be some sort of new gimmick with the Switch 2 that we don't know about. But a lot of people, I mean, on past podcasts I've been on, and I talked about it on this podcast a couple different times, is that it could be like a chat button. It could be people have thrown out like a connect button to some
campus. I've heard as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to point out, because you said the chat. They didn't mention or they didn't mention it, but they showed it that there's an actual the 3mm plug-in on the Switch too.
Yeah.
So we know you're not going to at least have to use the phone. Hopefully, it'll also use Bluetooth as well. It's at least one major obvious flaw with the original Switch.
Yeah, having to use the app was a huge, one of the biggest, I still think, downfalls of the Switch, which pretty unfortunate, because you think I think it has a lot to do with it just being Nintendo was the reason they didn't want to do it. But yeah, I guess I don't know. Hopefully we don't have to deal with that anymore, or friend code, to be honest with you, but some people don't care. All right, this is a big deal here. So we got this laying flat like this. So it's obviously being used like a mouse.
What a weird, fun, and kind of cute way of teasing it, because they're moving like actual mice, like physical, organic mice. But it instantly tells you what it conveys, but they don't linger on it at all. And I'm like, did I only pick up on it because I'd been following the leaks, but then I watched it with my parents today, in our video that was mentioned earlier, and they immediately recognized what it was. I'm like, well, hats off to Nintendo. They know what they're doing here, apparently. So
yeah, pretty crazy stuff. I mean, definitely an interesting, because they've got to have a gimmick of some kind, because it is Nintendo. So I mean, what an interesting one to have, I guess. That's something we definitely weren't expecting, for sure. But yeah, that's pretty neat there.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. It's something different, even if it's good or not, it's something different.
All right, so there's the connector we've got. So this has been a big point of contention with people.
People are losing sleep over this, man.
Yeah,
unnecessarily.
Quite literally. So I'm actually going to, I don't know if I can double pull up. If not, I'll just scroll back to where we were. But there's an image that I had that somebody made up of this here showing, and it's literally just it snapping with a sad Kirby there saying, "Oh no, I've seen this all over X."
That's funny.
What do you guys think? Obviously, we just talked a couple of minutes before, me, Mark, and ThunderStash, but what do you think as for this with like kids? Is this going to be a big problem with kids?
I'm personally not too worried. I mean, I don't want to give Nintendo too much credit these days after the whole Joy-Con fiasco with the joysticks drifting within weeks sometimes. But with that being said, I'm sure they've done multiple tests, tons of testing on this. There's no way they would have that be a major failure point. I say that knowing it is still possible, but I'm not too concerned, especially because I got a mock-up of the Switch 2, a printed one, and I've just been playing around with how it disconnects, and it seems like really difficult to really screw that up. Like, it seems like it's been designed in a way that you probably can't really apply any pressure to that through a natural disconnect of the Joy-Con. So I'm sure it's fine. I agree, it looks weird, but I don't think it's a concern.
Yeah, I'm kind of with that. I think people are just finding something to complain about a little bit.
Yeah.
Mark, you said the same thing.
I mean, even on the original Switch, because I don't have the OLED, I just have the OG one. With the rails, it's not like it's the most sturdiest. Like the few times I played on handheld, sometimes you put a little bit of pressure on it, you feel it start to bend a little bit. But I think it's with it snapped into place. The magnets is probably, obviously you have to take this into consideration. If someone's kind of forceful with it, it's just designed to come out, not necessarily the bend up and the front, the back, how you'd actually snap it. But 100% you could snap this, but you'd have to put a lot of force. Like, I don't know how many people just take the Switch, like, I don't know, let me just slam it on the ground like I would.
Just take my pliers right to this little connector.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Like, you'd have to go really out of your way to probably do damage to this.
Somebody commented, said, I have an 8 and 7-year-old. Everything is a problem with kids. Nothing is safe. I mean,
fair.
That was one of the reasons I said, because my daughter drops everything. But I don't, I don't know. I don't know if this is really going to end up being like a big issue or not. I don't think it is. I think it is more of people find something to complain about.
Even assuming they dropped it without the Joy-Cons attached, or even with them, either way, like it feels like that connector is probably pretty well insulated beneath the plastic, where it's not exposed.
Yeah.
Like it's hidden, the shell protects it. So you'd really have to go out of your way to damage the thing, I think. Now watch me be horribly wrong, but
I agree.
I mean,
zero concern whatsoever.
I guess the question is, do they come out later and kind of do what they did with the Switch, where they have the undockable mode, where it's just one solid piece, and that obviously would be better for more kids and stuff like that on the go, and with it being one solid piece, less likely for you to just straight damage it.
So
like a Switch Lite.
Yeah, the Switch Lite. I don't know why I
down the road.
Yeah.
I mean, I expected. I'm sure you guys expect the Switch Lite and eventually a Switch 2 OLED. That obviously seems to work very well. I'm sure they'll emulate the same thing again, but yeah, I mean, the thing is that how many times are you taking the Joy-Cons off? And once you take them off, what are you doing with the unit? You're setting it up on the kickstand and playing it if you're playing in tabletop mode, which, again, I don't think this is a hugely popular mode, but if you are playing in tabletop mode, you're just setting it down and you're playing, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really no different than any other, nice piece of electronics that you have, handle it with care. Don't drop it.
Right.
They're all going to break the same way. I'm not worried about this piece right here.
Yeah, I can happily say I've never had any issues with. I've had 5 different Switches. I've never had any issues with it.
A lot of Switches.
I mean, definitely never did with the Wii U gamepad. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a big thing. Mr. Coffee in the chat said, "Got to ask the big question: do people play with the Joy-Cons or with a Pro Controller?"
Pro Controller all day.
Yeah, all day too. I don't know that I ever. Honestly, I don't know that I ever used just a Joy-Con. And I wouldn't do that to anybody that comes over. Like back in the day, you give someone the Mad Catz controller.
Yeah, right.
This feels similar. Like, I'm not going to give someone just a Joy-Con to play against me in Mario Kart while I use the Pro Controller. Like, that's not right.
Fair.
You just dunk on them. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't use the Joy-Con. So I show, you can barely see obviously with me on the side, but like I've got the Hori ones on mine, but even then, like, I don't know. I still, even when I play it portably, like I said, I do set it down in tabletop mode and play with the Pro Controller. If I'm playing that way, if not, obviously it's playing docked, and it stays docked like 90% of the time, I would say. But yeah, I mean, I think it'd be awfully hard to break that. Then somebody did bring up a point and said something about he said at ThunderStash streaming this as mouse functionality. How do you think this will be utilized in fun and unique ways, or is it just a new version of the IR blaster, underutilized and niche?
Oh, as far as this being used as a mouse, I mean, I think this is gonna really attract the PC market. Like, big time. I think about all the games, right? Like, I bought my girl a Switch a few years ago. Actually, it was when the Animal Crossing bundle came out, right? Of course, she loved it, but like anything, it gets a little old. And one first question she asked is The Sims on Switch? And I had to think about it for a second. I'm like, it's not. And this was as of a few years ago. I know My Sims is on there now because I got that for.
Yeah.
So I had to fire up the PS4 to download Sims 4. But you think about something like that. Think about how wildly popular The Sims could be on Switch 2 with a mouse now.
Yeah.
There's so many games that could like greatly benefit, Diablo. Think about all the Microsoft games.
Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, because I expect a lot of those Microsoft games to come over to Switch too, which I'm sure we'll get into later. But yeah, the first person shooters, I mean, the sky's the limit. This is it's very smart because you're doing something where you're not reinventing and trying to change something that works, right?
Yeah.
It's just because, which we've seen Nintendo do obviously numerous times throughout the years. So adding something like this that doesn't change the form factor, but changes the way you can play it in a way that really actually doesn't feel gimmicky.
Yeah.
This legit could be very useful. And as you guys know, games like Mario Maker, Mario Paint, obviously, sky's the limit, man.
Bring back Mario Paint.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, NSO.
Bring it to
at
NSO.
least,
Yeah.
Bring over
Didn't
the
even
Mario Artist
think
games from
about
the
that.
64 disc drive, you know?
Yeah,
Right.
the
Yeah, why
DD.
not? Yeah.
Make a collection. Make a collection. That's perfect. That'd be awesome if they did that.
It would be. Yeah, I'm also way too excited for the mouse feature. Like, it just looks like a fun new way of using the Joy-Cons. And yeah,
I think so
to
too.
open the door to new types of games.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I do expect Nintendo to show us new ways to use the mouse that we've probably never thought of before.
And other companies too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think so with other companies as well. So you see them obviously inserting there.
Yeah, that's pretty slick. Like, that is way sleeker than, you know, using the rail from the current Joy-Con.
Yeah, it absolutely is. One thing I wanted to point out is obviously that logo was legit. That was going around there for quite a while. I kind of wanted to point out that it seems like a lot of the leaks, a lot of the big stuff talked about was not inaccurate.
No.
So it's a little crazy because I can't think of anything, even with the Switch 1, or I mean, you know, with the follow-up, because the Wii was so big, with the follow-up with the Wii U, which, you know, whatever, obviously a failed project, but I can't think of another system dating all the way back with Nintendo home consoles or handhelds where there's been this many either leaks or rumors with a console. Do you guys agree or disagree with that?
I would say dating back to, I would say, let's start with like the Dolphin, right?
Yeah.
Because that's when things really
big.
start to kind of take off on the internet, as far as the various internet forums where we get kind of news and get excited about the Dolphin.
Sure.
And I don't recall, and I follow that stuff daily. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
do
I've
too.
told you I was on like,
Power. I mean, I got every issue from 2000 till the last issue. Never missed an issue. So
yeah, I was in the IGN forums back in the day. I was constantly on like planetgamecube.com refreshing
Insider.
that.
You remember
Yeah.
Insider? Yeah.
Nintendo Dojo, all the Nintendo websites from back in the day. Like I was there following all this stuff. So I don't recall it there. I think with the Nintendo Revolution, there was a really good leak that came out early, but everyone, and I'll say I didn't, but everyone was calling BS on it back then.
Yeah.
And that was when the patents came out for there being built-in gyroscopes and sensors in a controller, and everyone's like, what would this be for? There's no way. And then that turned out to be 100% accurate. Outside of that, no, I mean, but this is a different time we're living in.
Yeah.
Completely. Like, even from when these leaks would have happened, which would have been the end of 2016, right? Early 2017. The world's changed a lot, and the way everyone communicates. Also, the way people just seems to like be that they don't care as much what the repercussions might be. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if some people literally applied to work at one of these factories in China
Just to leak it.
Yep. Just to leak it.
Do that.
Yeah, because they don't care.
Totally see that.
They're just chasing, you know, I guess what clout, which is a thing apparently, and you know, they want to be the next big leaker, which I didn't know that anyone aspired to be that. I thought, you know what I'm saying? It's a different time we live in than when we were growing up. So I understand why we're getting all these leaks. But Andre, what do you think, man? Do you remember any time like this?
Not like this, no. Because even with the Switch, which, you know, it was almost a decade ago at this point, you know, there was still social media around there, was quite different. But even that didn't leak. You know, there were rumblings that it would be a hybrid, but we didn't have anything like full. We didn't have this. weeks before the system was revealed. And when Nintendo showed off, what we're looking at on screen right now, I'm like, that straight up is, a render I had seen, basically. Someone had basically created that. So I don't recall anything to this degree, but I think also it's because we're operating now on tighter timetables than we ever had before. Maybe Nintendo got lucky with the Switch and how that didn't leak to the original Switch, and with that how that didn't leak to this extent or anywhere near.
Right.
But now that this thing presumably is out within the next 6 months, and with them seemingly manufacturing at larger inventories than before to ensure that they can sell as many as possible at launch, it just may be it was a losing battle. And I almost feel like they just announced it just to get it out of the way. It's like, hey, finally, here you go. Stop using those renders. Use our official images. Because, it's just kind of crazy that everything was known. Literally, this trailer, it didn't really reveal anything but Mario Kart. It just affirmed everything we already knew if you followed the leaks.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's it felt like a shadow drop that they had to do is what it felt like.
It's kind of like, you all ruined it. We wanted to wait. They obviously gave us the date later at the very end of when they're going to come out and say it in about 2.5 months. This was kind of like, well, you all ruined it. We'll give you this so you can leave us alone. It's more's coming now, and then just be like, whatever. The leakers ruined it. But I guess the question is, when it comes to the leak, this just, I guess, Andre said it, did they get lucky, or going from the essentially the failure of the Wii U to the Switch, there were just less overall hype around this because you're coming off of the heels of the Switch, which is realistically about to be the best selling console of all time. I think it's gonna be surpass the PlayStation 2. So it's just a whole different environment with Nintendo, as far as from a failure to a eventual success to a massive success. Now the next one, now everyone's hyped.
That's a really good point, actually. Yeah, everyone cares now, whereas no one really cared. Well, relatively, no one cared back with the original Switch because everyone thought Nintendo was doomed.
Yeah,
people thought, that was it for Nintendo. People thought that they were going to be done for pretty much after the Wii U.
How many times have we heard that in our life?
Oh yeah,
yeah, we have.
If you're a Nintendo fan, that's just constant. This is actually the first time they've kind of defied that for some period of time at least.
Yeah, no doubt. I definitely feel the same way. All right.
Now, these colors here too, by the way.
Yeah.
I got to show you this picture. So looking at the blue and I would call it maybe a coral or maybe a salmon. Look at this. I'm going to share this picture. Tell me if those colors look familiar. Dude,
just a little.
So I had this color right here when they did the salmon, but I'd wanted to get it because in the original pictures it looked orange, and I want to get it for Phoenix Suns, Phoenix Suns color, purple and orange. And when I got it, obviously it did look more like this, but immediately when I saw the trailer and I saw that it was confirmed that it is those colors that we did see in the leaks, I was like, dude. Right, it's right there. It's right there.
It's so funny because Nintendo has a history of this. I mean, it's actually surprising they don't get this doesn't get mentioned more often. But Nintendo had the fun colors for the Nintendo 64 shortly after Apple had their translucent Max. The Wii obviously and DS Lite especially were heavily influenced by the Apple tech at that era. And now of course this again. I mean, it's not nearly to the same extent, but I just think it's funny that color-wise, they tend to follow Apple's design pretty closely at times.
Yeah, it is. And even if you look at it with the Game Boys, you had the Play It Loud series back in the day where you had all the different colors of the OG Game Boy, the Game Boy Pocket.
Yeah.
Obviously the Atomic Purple for the Game Boy Color being that launch model.
Love that color.
Yeah, well, I do too. I mean... It'd be a dream if they brought it back.
That whole Fantastic series of Nintendo 64s, I legit would actually like to get all of those just because it's so cool.
They look great.
I'm not gonna lie.
No, I miss that.
Not cooler than the Pikachu ones, the orange and blue Pikachu ones. Those
Toys R Us
are a little
exclusive.
cooler. But we don't get that anymore. We get. They've done the different Joy-Con collars, so I guess you can mix and match the way that you want to do. But as far as the actual console shell, I've seen plenty of people that have modded their Switches for those clear shells, and they look beautiful.
Yeah.
So
that's actually what I'm planning on doing.
I think I want to do that
myself
too. I think so too. I've got an extra regular Switch, one that I can do some stuff with, and I think I want to do that. I told you about the Super OLED screen I ordered for the Switch Lite too. So
yeah, I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
I do like the accented colors, the subtle.
Yeah, I like that too.
Just overall more sleek, a more streamlined design from the original Switch. Ideally more power, but it's a new Mario game.
Okay, so here we are with Mario Kart.
One game.
Oh yeah,
the one game that we get to see. So based on just this visual here, what if this is all you saw, this image? What are your guys' thoughts right there? First off, right off the bat.
I mean, the first thought I had was that this looks like more of the Mario Kart we've been playing for 10 years.
Yeah.
What I said, it looks like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Is this like a new booster course track? Like, what's going on?
Like right off the bat, when I look at it, it looked exactly the same. But obviously, and I mean, we can just go and dive into the Mario Kart now. But there's right here, just where I stopped. There's a couple of pointers here. We've got the little things in front of the carts that are supposed to be like spikes or something,
like a bumper or something.
I'm not sure. And then you see an awful lot of racers there in the back, more than usual. I think we're probably looking at 24 maybe.
Yeah, double 24.
Yeah, based off what the start thing. So is this something that you'd expect them to continue with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but fundamentally they want to do more that make the game bigger, and the base code just couldn't handle what they wanted to do. So we're just going to make a new game. It's going to have overall, larger tracks, larger online, if that's like really what they want to push with this game. That I would assume that makes sense. Probably going to be $70 at launch. I guess the question is like how much content we're going to get, because there's so many tracks in Deluxe at this point. It would suck to go back to a standard 32 track layout and have to continue to get more content.
That's why it kind of feels like they're hitting the reset button. And I say this as one who's going mostly off speculation, off what little we have seen. But it looks like, we're getting bigger tracks here, which may have multiple configurations if it's not changing dynamically, lap to lap or something. And so what I'm thinking, they're looking to do more with less, maybe, where there's like fewer bespoke tracks, but each one has a ton of variants. And I think that's kind of how you can get around that problem. Because, there's no way they're going to top 100 tracks from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So maybe their way of doing so is to have, like, 20 giant maps or whatever, where there's, like, 15 different permeations or whatever ends up being,
And my guess, too, is that they're going to support this for all of the life cycle. Obviously, we're not going to get another Mario Kart on the Switch. That's never happened before. So my guess, they're going to continue to support this and do something similar to the booster pass, but
this is evergreen Mario Kart. This is day one evergreen Mario Kart right here.
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah, I think it's going to be a platform. I think it's going to be just an evergreen title now, as you were saying.
Which is great, because you can almost look at it as a live service model in some ways, but totally in a Nintendo way, which is totally opposite of what a live service game is in that sense, which is good for us, the consumer. But I would say if they keep it the same kind of style of tracks as far as the length, I could see maybe going 48. We have 96 right now. Maybe we get 48 to start, but maybe it is the standard 32. But I would expect DLC is going to be detailed out kind of from the beginning, like a roadmap, so to speak. And I would also expect that to start, it's going to be pretty much the Mushroom Kingdom. And the DLC is going to be where it turns into. It morphs a little bit. It'll always be by name Mario Kart, but I do believe it's going to morph into Nintendo Kart, which is going to be fun, personally. I think that would be a lot of fun. We saw it with the DLC. There's a ton of potential there. And by doing that, I think it helps increase the visibility and sales of these other Nintendo titles, because if you got 70 million people playing Mario Kart and they're going through a F-Zero Cup or a Xenoblade Cup or Zelda, people who don't know what this is, they're looking at it like, oh, what is this? I should look it up.
Yeah.
I'm interested now. I want to see the rest of this universe. So That would be my guess.
And on top of that, if you're bringing in all of the Nintendo IPs, just the first party, it just gives you a bigger variety of tracks and different, designs you could bring into from, I don't know, you have a Metroid track to, obviously we've had some little bit of Zelda stuff. You could have, I don't know, I guess they've dealt with Mario Galaxy. It's a bad example, but more a Donkey Kong specific track. You have whole, 4, 5, 8 tracks, a whole cups based off different, IPs all across Nintendo. And it explodes the ability to have, maybe 80 tracks to 180. I'm just pulling stuff out of my butt, but
yeah, why spend money on advertising when you can literally advertise in game?
Yeah.
It makes too much sense. It's such a good marketing vehicle. Like, when a Metroid game comes out, you add Samus and her little gunship cart, and that'd be a lot of fun.
And that, as we know, that's a franchise that would really, really benefit, because we got to.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Nintendo's got to pull out all the stops, as we know, as far as their marketing team to try and catapult Metroid into that upper echelon of Nintendo titles, because as we know, critically acclaimed always, but when it comes to the actual sales of it, it's always fallen short. Now, obviously, Metroid Dread, that did better for sure, but
better
as the rest of the titles go, we need to see Nintendo pull out all the stops, and this would be a great way to do it.
Uh-huh.
I see a lot of people saying on X, and obviously we've gotten a lot of comments about it being like an open world sort of concept. So when you say like a dynamic course, like that's kind of, I get the dynamic course part. So like a semi more open Mario, I don't think it's going to be like a straight up open world Mario Kart where you're going to drive location to location to location for like the single player or whatever. But I do see like breaking up the course changes. It's going to be, like you're saying, dynamic. It's going to change. And one thing I was hoping was, this is a great chance for them to bring all the gimmicks of the past Mario Kart, Double Dash with the double carts, 7 with like the hovercraft or the gliders and stuff. Like I feel like that would be really cool to bring those back in and make the stages more different. They can make them very, very different, very distinct.
That's a good point, right? Depending on how they do this, like you could have routes that are, water based when there's other routes when there may not be any water at all, or maybe you're flying or something, all in the same track design. Again, we don't know exactly how they're going to set this up or deploy that, but it's exciting to think about. Like you could have races in the same area and feel entirely differently.
Yeah. I think it would be really cool.
What I'm hoping for is to see weather mechanics for each course.
Oh, that's a great point. I didn't think about that. That would be so cool.
Yeah, you could have like snow and rain, but I don't know how well they could do it. But like if you're able to add not only weather, but it changes like the traction. So it's like it's snowy, you have less traction, you start sliding a lot more and stuff like that. Adds a whole level of dynamics to the game.
Exactly.
They kind of touched on that just a little bit with the Animal Crossing stage from Mario Kart 8. We had the 4 different seasonal variants, and they could do that, something like that for every track where there's like, rain or snow. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
That would also put a lot more emphasis on how you're building your cart.
Good point.
What kind of tires you're going to be using, right? So it adds I think a lot to the strategy, right? Because if you're playing, if you're playing in a cup, you got to make sure that however you're building your cart is suitable for all weather conditions, right? Otherwise you might be in trouble, like on one of these tracks.
Yeah. And like right now you're just trying to build it just for max speed. As long as my traction's not terrible, I'll survive.
Although it is a little ironic that we see Rosalina using what looks to be a snowmobile in the desert.
Yeah.
Like, what's she thinking?
Yeah, absolutely hilarious. So we're going to pause it here in just a quick second too for we got
Too small. Nintendo, I'm sorry. You failed.
All right, right here. So obviously something very big that stands out is Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
So he's taken the movie appearance, and I've seen a lot of takes on this. So what is everybody's take on this as to why?
Ideally, more skin variants for all the characters.
I've heard that take.
That's the first thing that came to my mind.
I think this is the Donkey Kong movie model. I think it's from Mario. It's going to be used in a future Donkey Kong movie. I think they have massive, and let me say I'm very thankful that they're finally doing this, but I think they have massive plans for Donkey Kong because you got to factor in Universal with Super Nintendo World. I mean, Donkey Kong got an expansion before you put in The Legend of Zelda. So you got to have huge plans that are connecting with the movie, right?
Yep.
So, and obviously the Mario movie, the sequel is coming out first before the Legend of Zelda movie. So that makes sense as well. But I think there's a new direction, and I want to believe that this further solidifies my belief, and hopefully your guys's, that we're finally going to get a 3D Donkey Kong game. It's been a long time since we got a new one.
Yep.
A real new one.
I really hope so. I've heard the take too that they're like, okay, we're doing away with the rare design of Donkey Kong, which I can see. I feel like this has a lot to do just in the trailer alone with them wanting to promote Donkey Kong Universal in the movie, right? Like, I think they have big plans to expand because Donkey Kong has like such a sort of vast universe there with, all of the different various characters that could be very humorous, very funny. Like, you think of Cranky Kong and you think of just all these hilarious characters, right? Like, especially that would appeal with kids. But I do wonder, it makes me wonder, could this be like a skin choice thing, or no, we're just doing away? Why just Donkey Kong? That's what I wonder. I just don't understand that part. Why just Donkey Kong for the movie design?
Yeah, I think skins are a possibility, or maybe more likely costumes. I don't know if they'd have completely different character models available. I mean, it'd be awesome if they did. I don't think they will, though. I think Nintendo still wants to have like, hey, this is like our vision for how Donkey Kong appears in this game. So to that point, I actually really like this look. I'm a big fan of the Mario movie, and I thought that movie finally brought together like Mario and Donkey Kong in a cohesive way, which the games haven't really done. They've been largely separate entities since since the original arcade game. So what I think I don't know if this is necessarily a new direction for the character, but maybe more just a direction for how he appears when he's in Mario's world. Whereas if you play the Donkey Kong games, you'll continue to use the more the classic rare look. But I think it's cool that they updated him and that's something different. And in a game where that looked so much like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe initially, I'm like, I will take it. That looks definitely unique and different to me than it did before. So
yeah, definitely interesting to see there. There's a few other pointers too, obviously, as we come along here. I think 2025.
Yes, I feel like we already knew that.
Yeah.
All right, so backwards compatibility confirmed, but with an asterisk that says, certain Nintendo Switch titles won't be supported. Do you have any guesses? Like, I've got some guesses, I think, and I think it's really going to be a very small amount of Nintendo Switch games. But
the 1-2 Switch, maybe, because I don't know if it has like the some like the IR. So like a handful of games that use something like the no games.
HD Rumble? We don't even know that.
It's similar to like the Switch Lite in that when the Switch Lite came out, they had to say, hey, it's not compatible with all Switch games.
Yeah.
I mean, how are you going to play something like Labo when you can't detach the Joy-Cons?
Right.
I think this is very, very minimal. And again, you guys, I'm sure, saw it all over social media, but a lot of people are deeply concerned. And this is not something to be, truly not something to be concerned about. It's going to be a very small handful of games that you likely don't play. And here's the thing. If you really want to play those games, you love them that much, it means that much to you, keep your Switch.
Keep your Switch. Yeah.
Case closed, man. Problem solved.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a lot like Nintendo. I don't know, Switch Sports. Could that work?
It depends if original Joy-Cons are. Oh, actually, yeah. You know what? Actually, Nintendo actually released an image that has very similar to this, but instead of a white backdrop, it actually has pictures of games that are seemingly confirmed to work on Switch 2, and Switch Sports is among them. The only part that I question is the kicking soccer ball mode, because they use the leg strap, and I don't know the new Joy-Con fit into that or not. So that could be the one thing that doesn't maybe translate. Otherwise, the game.
That's what I was thinking of. And then obviously somebody said here pretty much lists a couple of things we thought: Labo, 1-2 Switch, Ring Fit. I mean, it's going to be games like that. Right. I'm sure that there's going to be other ones, but I don't think the list is going to be that big. So it's just going to be one of those things: is just keep Switch around.
Here's the
thing,
if you want to
play your games. I keep Switch around and don't sell it off.
I think it still works. Like, I think these games will work. I think Nintendo has to be really careful and specific with their wording, because if you just buy a Switch 2, these games won't work. But if you own a Switch and you connect your Joy-Cons to the Switch 2, I believe they will work. But you can't say that. Like, there's not enough room to explain this scenario.
That's my hope. Yeah, I'm hoping that it'll be backwards compatible with the previous controllers and resolve most of these issues. In that case, the only games I think that wouldn't work would be Labo, because that was dependent on the Switch's screen size.
Yep, the cutouts.
Right. But even in the worst case, even assuming, the other Joy-Con games won't work, it's still just a handful of games, to the point that I'm honestly I just don't understand why they just didn't say that. Just tell us what those games are. They're creating so much more drama when there doesn't need to be. Most people aren't going to give a crap about not being able to play Labo or Ring Fit, though that game's great. And 1-2 Switch, right? Like, they're creating more drama when there doesn't need to be. I don't know why they didn't say it.
Do you think it's on purpose to keep the conversation going?
I don't know. Who knows with Nintendo? I don't think it is. I think it's honestly didn't see this coming. However,
I mean, look how long it took for them to say something, because we have been talking about these rumors. I went back, it was something like episode 80 something we were talking, and no joke, the second episode of this podcast, we were talking Switch Pro. So,
right, yeah.
At that point in time, it was Switch Pro rumors. So we were talking about that, and we thought, for sure that was going to happen. And it didn't, obviously. But it's I don't know, man. Like, Nintendo's interesting right now. Like, this whole thing's just interesting because we got like pretty much zero information. They showed, the mouse thing, which was pretty cool. Not something we expected to see, but we didn't get details. Right. We didn't get the details.
I will say though, I love this. I was so thankful that at the end of this video, because I'm watching it and I could see how much is left in the video.
Yeah.
And knowing the amount of information I got with the information that I already know, I'm like, okay, so I haven't learned anything new here. But as it got to the end and this page came up saying that the Direct is going to be on April 2nd, right? Yeah. I was like, I really appreciate that. No guesswork. We know what we're building up to now. And, the hope is that the third parties, the indie devs, can fill in that time up to that date with announcements, which I already saw a handful.
Yeah, I already saw some
indie games announced today.
Yes, yeah, which is really cool. That's cool to see. I mean, we're going to see a bunch. I expect that we're going to continually see a bunch of games that are going to be announced because we saw it before where me and you talked about it, Steve, on the Nintendo Byte podcast, but where they were just showing the Nintendo logo. They weren't showing a logo at that point.
Yeah.
So
Yuka replay.
Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of that, but we pretty much knew about a few before. If it said just Nintendo and didn't have the Nintendo Switch logo, it was that deal, I'm truly excited to see what indie devs do with like the mouse thing and just with the beefier hardware, because like indie games have really they've really kind of They've came a long way. They really have. Like, they truly have an impact in the gaming sphere now more than ever. I mean, I got sent a code earlier about this one new game that's just an 8-bit style game that's supposed to be like Final Fantasy and stuff. And I was like, man, there's just so many of these cool games like
this.
Which
one? Is it 8-bit Adventures?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
You play it?
Awesome game. Yeah. There's part 1 and 2. Awesome game. You'll like it.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm going to check that out on stream and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm so excited, man, to see what kind of happens with this. But what from this, because we talked about in the past, obviously we know about the DLSS and all that stuff. It's obviously going to be a big deal. A RAM upgrade from 4 gigabytes to 12 gigabytes, storage from 32 gigabytes to 256 gigabytes. One thing I've seen a lot of contention on is, we talked about this probably a couple times in the past too, but the switch from OLED to LCD, we knew that was going to happen. Which are your guys' thoughts on that?
LCD technology has came a long way since the original Switch. If you look at your PlayStation Portal, are you happy with that screen? Are you satisfied? I'm satisfied. I think it looks great, right? So again, that technology has come a long way. If you were to compare the Portal LCD screen to the original Switch LCD screen, you can see a huge improvement. So again, zero concern. And here's the thing, man, the OLED's coming. It'll come in a few years, probably might be a little bit longer. It might be 3 years, 4 years, depends. But that's coming. And if it really, really bothers you that much, there's creative ways around that if you want to learn.
Or you can just plug it into the dock and play on your OLED TV or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
I mainly play on that.
Or like, have you guys seen that big? I forget what company, so I feel bad. The company that made the big giant screen for the Switch.
Oh, G something.
Yeah,
Mike's got one. Mike Odyssey has one.
Yeah, G something. G Story.
G Story. Yeah.
Yeah, G Story. Yeah, because I've got their Series X foldable screen there. Yeah, I think I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, honestly. Personally, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal.
Outside of like your hardcore gamers, I mean, if you're thinking most like your core audience, people that are going to play it on the TV, or more of the younger audience, it's worth the saving the money for whatever the $50 you might save. Put that into the actual hardware, just so your games play better. I agree. Most people just aren't going to care. I know I don't care as much.
Yeah, for sure. And then I'm going to share
a bigger screen. That's something to celebrate.
It's a much bigger screen. Again, I'm looking at my, the mock-up here, and it's hard to tell in pictures, but like when you have it in front of you, it's like that's a notably bigger screen. You will see that difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got the announcement for the Nintendo Switch 2 experience, which is based on essentially a lottery system on whether you're going to get drawn. Has anybody besides me tried to put in tickets for a location?
Took like half an hour, but finally I got through. Yeah.
I got through.
So where'd you guys submit? Where were you trying to go? Which one did you?
Well, I obviously had to submit for New York.
The closest one.
I did all three. It lets you do each location. So.
Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should actually do that.
All I can say is the lottery system, that's the most Japanese thing ever. And I both love it and hate it at the same time.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, and you only get to pick one day in time too.
Yeah. I didn't know you could sign up for all of them. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because like that was prior to it going live, that was one of the things I was thinking about, Andre, is like, I'm willing to go to whichever one.
Right.
Yeah. Like I'm down to go do this. This is going to be fun. I don't know if you guys remember back in the day, the Nintendo Cube Club. Did anyone go to that?
Oh my God. Was that the things they had in different cities? I went to that. Yeah.
Dude,
I never got to go. No.
Cousin and I went. Okay. So we went the first night, we got tickets to it. And, we were just chatting it up with the staff, obviously trying to get some like freebies as well. I was pretty young then. I was in high school. I think it was a sophomore or junior. And they asked us if we wanted to come back again the next day. So they gave us tickets.
That's so cool.
We drove downtown and just hung out, and, we were playing Star Wars, Rogue Leader, NBA Courtside, Wave Race Blue Storm. It was just so much fun. There was a bunch of games, and we ended up going, I kid you not, the entire week they were there.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they gave us tickets every time, and I actually have a Nintendo GameCube Cube Club Polo.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and I still have it.
I remember that happening. Unfortunately, they do not do these events anywhere near me at all.
Yeah.
And I'm in Ohio, so I'm, who cares about Ohio, right? But I definitely have not had those opportunities close. Like they did the Switch hands-on experience stuff. Never got to do that. I don't remember. Did they do something for the Wii U too?
I don't recall.
No, I don't think they did. I mean, I know they didn't here in Arizona, and similar to where you're living, in Ohio.
Yeah.
If something comes here, it's like, you have to go because you're fortunate that they want to come to your city, right?
Yeah, even blessed.
Yes.
I don't know, Mark. If we both get lucky and get through on it, we might have to plan a little 2-day trip or something somewhere. I think it'd be pretty cool. Where would be the closest location for you?
Whatever's out
I'll
west.
take whatever I can get. Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you mentioned that you can do all three, but yeah, it's cool that they're doing that hands-on event. I guess one of the things is, let me see if it says it on here. I don't actually see where it says the date that it ends. I thought it was June. I heard.
I saw it actually. I took a screenshot on my phone, and interestingly, I wanted to do some research on this for our podcast on Wednesday, and so I'm glad you brought this up because I can go over these dates when it ends. Let me get this here. Okay, so the last date is in South Korea.
Okay.
May 31st to June 1st. And so I don't know if you guys saw, but everyone on Twitter was like, well, since this is the last day of the experience, right, then it can't come out any earlier than that.
Right.
But one thing I would like to mention is that the Switch 2 will not come out in South Korea the same time it comes out in the United States, UK, Japan, and Australia. And I looked it up. Also, the Switch 1 didn't release in South Korea until December 1st, 2017. So quite a long ways later. And then even get this. So the Hong Kong date as well is right around the South Korea date. It didn't release in Hong Kong until December 2019.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this is not a worldwide launch. It's going to launch in US, UK, Japan, and Australia at the same time.
Yeah.
But outside of that, the other markets are going to be later. So to me, that does not 100% signify that we can't get it earlier than June 1st, or at least right at that time. You know what I mean? Because that market has nothing to do with the market that we're living in. It's going to come out later there. It's going to be a staggered release. PlayStation did the same thing. PS5, it's very tough to scale literally worldwide. But if you hit your major markets, that's about as good as you can get. What do you guys think about that?
I personally don't feel like that signifies, hey, this doesn't come out until June or after June. I think it still could come out 2 months before that and still do the events, because it just feels like, hey, it's another marketing push, like people going out and seeing it in person and having that experience. I feel like the possibility is still there that it comes out before that, even like semi-significantly before that. I don't know how much earlier. We've heard April, May, and June. I mean, those are kind of the three the windows there that we're but I don't think that signifies that we're not getting it until that certain time. Personally, I don't know how. Mark, Andre, how do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, you actually brought up that was some good information there on the whole thing, because I was kind of feeling like that it likely wouldn't come out prior to that final event, though this new information might conflict with that a little bit. In any case, though, I was already feeling like June seemed like a good time for it. In any case, and I think more that whatever the final event actually ends up being, I think that more points to when the closest possible release could be. And I wasn't really expecting it early May anyway. Maybe they'll surprise me. So I think more like, I think it's actually, regardless of what the actual final date for, the relevant markets are for the first release, I'm thinking that indicates whatever that is, like it's going to come out shortly thereafter, within a few weeks. So at this point, I'm thinking like late June's the absolute latest it will come out. But I don't think they want to hold off too long after these, any of these events have happened, or the final set of the events or whatever. And but now I guess May's in play again, so maybe that just seems a little too soon to me. But I'd be happy to be wrong on that.
Yeah. Mark, how do you feel about that? Because you brought up some points about having like a 6-month window from the announcement is where he's kind of at.
Yeah, I mean, I guess June would fall that because it's technically January. It's not not the traditional announcement. Technically you could say it was announced in January. So I think a summer release window probably makes sense. You don't want to wait too long into the fall. Right. Not only because you're competing with other games, you get into the holiday season. Obviously, the big thing everybody talks about is GTA 6, but I think the window they're announcing this, I think June, July makes sense realistically, but obviously we're gonna know here, in like 2.5 months anyways. So we can speculate for content until then. But I mean, by the time we get our hands on with the Switches, we're gonna know when it's coming out.
So it's interesting because sorry, go ahead, Andre.
No, I'm sorry. I had nothing to say.
What I was going to say is like, what's interesting is that Nintendo really has scattered releases. Cause I mean, you had the Wii U in November. A lot of people thought it was going to come out last year before the holidays.
Yep.
There's a lot of that. We had that, didn't happen. And then, the Switch came out in March. So I don't think they're necessarily stuck on one date. We're in a pattern of different dates. So I think that, that signifies something there that the specific month does not matter to them. And they obviously want to be separated from any other consoles that might be coming out. I mean, even as much as really Xbox isn't necessarily a competitor with, Nintendo, we've heard new hardware. We've heard that, we've heard handheld. So we just don't know when these things are coming out. So them kind of, scattering it out a little bit before, anything else might be dropping. It's definitely something they want to do.
Mm-hmm. Can I put on my conspiracy theorist hat for a second?
They're
putting out a bunch of dates just to throw off the leakers. That's it. That's how they're going to find where the leak's coming from. They're going to put a bunch of fake dates out there. One of them is going to be real. And they're just
we were talking about that too.
Yeah.
They're just trying to throw everybody off the scent and find the leaker probably. Or maybe
it would be smart.
I can see him doing it too.
I do think it's better to get it out earlier. Just so you can have two kind of huge launches in the same year, right?
Right. Yeah.
You have the launch and then you have the holiday, both in the same year.
Yeah.
And you want to have that spread out enough, right? Because once you start selling them, say hypothetically in June, who's going to be helping to sell Nintendo consoles? Us, the early adopters, right? Everyone who's always going to be buying these on day one. We advertise pretty much all the way up until the holidays for everyone. And then you have another buying cycle. Obviously, that went extremely well for Switch 1. So that is my hope that June would be the latest. And I feel pretty confident that June is the latest. And even then, you think about it, school's out beginning of June. It is a good time. The GBA launched in June. That seemed to work out really well. I remember I got the GBA in time for summer school, and that was clutch.
You probably helped that summer school, I imagine.
I got it launched, so that must have been the same thing that happened. I didn't have summer school. Actually, that's a lie. I did. I just don't remember what year.
There it is.
Yeah, no, I did. I did have it, but I forget what year.
I guess the other question is, I think what you were saying makes sense. Release it in June, so you get your first adopters, your hardcore fans, people that want to get it first, And it allows you to have that lull in sales. So you have the production ramp up, and then you can prepare for your second wave in the holiday season, where your general consumer, your family, would be looking to probably buy the at least with the first wave.
Yeah, because you're almost wasting that launch momentum if you launch it during the holidays. Regardless, you're just kind of missing an opportunity.
You're trying to avoid, supply issues as well. So you want to try to spread that out as much as you can in the first year.
Yeah, and people want to know if it's good. Like they want to be sold on it. I mean, I'm sure you guys know, and you've probably played this role within your friends and family group. But when it comes to video games, who does everybody call, right?
Yep.
They always call. They call us, right, to ask about it. Should we get a Switch 2 or should we get this? So people are going to be looking to always us, the early adopters, for that, and it just makes sense because you can only pump out so many if you were to launch around the holiday.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is on track. So I guess I'll go ahead and pull up real quick this because it's just absolutely insane to see these numbers. We've got, let's see here. So currently for the Switch 2, we're at almost 17 million views in one day. Number one trending for gaming. That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw some of the numbers, but they were crunching. Someone was crunching numbers on Twitter.
What, the Switch 1 reveal trailer?
No, it was just about Switch 2, and they were just taking the numbers from different regions and kind of adding it all up. And the reach that this has had, I mean, it was well over 100 million within 8 hours between all different territories and different networks. And so they did a really good job.
Yeah,
dropping it like this.
Huge.
Yeah, Nintendo's got massive momentum on their side right now, which is something they haven't had in quite some time. I mean, it's funny because this was one of the longest times they've waited to launch a successor, and one of the issues they've run into before is they waited too long, like with the Wii to the Wii U transition. And now it seemed like they didn't wait too long, or perhaps it's more that they were able to maintain that momentum for as long as they have. And people are now, they're hungry and excited for a successor, clearly. And that shadow drop paid off for them. I mean, it was funny, just, over a day ago, people are like, Nintendo would never shadow drop this thing. Why would they do that? They've never done that before. And here they are doing exactly that. So, yeah, Nintendo can never be fully predicted.
They got to keep you on your toes.
Yeah, and even interestingly, since Furukawa became president, the Switch Lite and the Switch OLED were both shadow dropped too. I mean, I know they're not new consoles, but both of those were shadow dropped. So maybe that is a thing going forward. But then again, at the end of the trailer, then we got the date for the direct. So it's like, who knows, man?
Yeah. Well, especially, I mean, to that point too, with the Switch 2 being the first named or numbered successor for Nintendo, they might just be looking at it differently. Like, this is part of this new line where they've shadow dropped every form of it except for the original. Right. And maybe they are just kind of looking at it as an extension of the current Switch line. And maybe that's, the way they handle that project is just different than they have with console launches in the past.
Yeah. How long do you guys think because they obviously want to reach that top Nintendo or console sales? Obviously they want to do that. How long after the Switch 2 comes out do you think that Switch will still be sold? Because I'm thinking a good 2 to 3 years personally.
I was going to say 3 years at least, yeah.
Yep.
You got to agree with that.
Just to reach that number, drop the price down on the console, drop it down on the Switch Lite especially, which I think is going to be a big seller if they drop that down,
I agree.
I mean,
they should do that like the same day they announce this or it comes out, just, clearance on the Switch. You get your sales and you can start, clearing out your inventory.
Do you guys remember 2DS XL? They were $99 at Walmart there for a minute.
Yeah.
I wish I would have grabbed like 7 of them.
I was talking about this actually on the podcast on Wednesday, but I do expect price drop to coincide with the Switch 2 launch. When it's going to happen, I don't know. It's up to Nintendo, but it's going to be in or around that time. And I do expect Switch Lite to go down to $99.
That's what I think. Yeah,
it's going to be a stocking stuffer, literally, because you will be able to fit it in a fat stocking, and it's going to be perfect, man.
I mean,
It'd be
I'll
great.
buy a couple of them at 100. Just have a couple color variants and just say I have them.
Just like
you
when
know.
the GameCube went on sale for
Right.
99 and then 49 for a brief moment.
Yep, that's how I got my the GameCube. That I ended up getting a second GameCube, $99 platinum. I was pretty happy. I mean, that was
Sure.
it was awesome. But yeah, I wish I would have grabbed some of those more of those 2DS XLs and the 3DS XLs, because I think they kept. I could be wrong and misremembering, but I think they kept the new 3DS XLs at 150, and I could. Do you guys remember?
I think so, because when I got my two 3D XLs,
one and stuff,
it would have been around what 21, 22, and they were about 150 a piece.
Yeah, so
give or take.
Yeah.
I got my 3DS on launch day when it was 250, and then I got my ambassador certificate and my 20 games.
And they dropped the price way down.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. Like,
it was $100 cut, right?
Yeah, and I didn't mind. I'm like, whatever. I guess that's part of being an early adopter. But the fact that they were like, hey, you know what? We're sorry. We want to give you 20 games. I'm like, what? This is unheard of.
I think you didn't learn from that experience, though, which is, good. But one thing I wanted to mention, I don't know much about them, so I don't have a lot of input personally, but Nintendo stocks did rise up significantly yesterday.
Yeah.
And they stayed up until about 4 p.m. it looks like yesterday, and then they dropped way down, and they're down today. Like, there was a massive drop off. Does that signify anything at all to you guys? I don't know anything about stocks. I'm pulling up here on Google the Nintendo ADR.
That's just people seeing riding the hype train to make some money, and then they're selling off while the stock's high. I wouldn't look too much into it.
By 4 p.m.
It's not. I mean, at this grand scale, if you look at the it's still up in the past 5 days. It's just there's always for a lot of stocks, for a lot of companies, you always see a stock go up before there's like a quarterly or something like that. And a lot of people will ride the hype as not necessarily like a pump and dump, but very similar as they're trying to make a quick buck.
Yeah, I don't
because apparently Microsoft is up 1.05%. Sony is down 1.79%.
Yeah, I don't put a lot of stock in it. But for I really don't. It's gonna change a little bit. It's gonna go up and down up until the investor meeting, and ultimately, I think it probably went down because there wasn't a lot shown.
Yeah.
It really was just an affirmation of what had been rumored. So nothing too surprising. Mario Kart was the biggest surprise there, which, is cool and great, but especially for someone just looking at it for a few seconds, it's like it's just Mario Kart again. There's nothing majorly new going on here.
As well as I think you have to think about like stocks and the health of a company. While they matter, they're not always a 1-for-1, and a lot of stock trading is more speculation than anything else and stuff like that. So a lot of people that are going to be in it for the long term are going to be fine with it. A lot of the day-to-day or the week-to-week up and downs, I wouldn't think too much unless it was like a 30-40%, like something like that's like 5% that happens.
Yeah, and I would expect it to go up again on April 2nd.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so what are we thinking on the price point? Because we're seeing a price point. Like, it's either the contention is kind of between 350 or 400 is basically what I'm saying. And that I kind of thought the 400 is what I thought before they even said any of this. So that was my thought all along, because the DLSS and the new technology that's put into this console, I think it does, requires a little bit more than the Switch had. But, I'm kind of curious on your guys' thoughts as the price point for this.
$400 minimum, I think, honestly. I think $400 is a floor for this, with them possibly going to $450. I don't think they'll go to $500, but Nintendo's operating from a position of strength right now. They know there is demand for this, and they could, arguably overprice it, and it would still probably sell just fine. And if it doesn't, then they can lower the price. So I would be shocked if it comes in at anything less than $400.
Yeah, I can't personally see the 350. I don't. What do you think, Mark?
I mean, because I pulled up to verify. Yeah, the Switch launched at 3, the OLED at 350. I think a 4 to 450 kind of makes sense for the hardware, plus kind of what you just said. Andre. You could launch it for the early adopters who are going to buy it at a higher price point, and then based off of feedback, you can either lower it or you can do a temporary. It's holidays, so we can put it on sale, something more reasonable and stuff like that. But I think probably $450 makes a lot of sense to me.
I'm expecting 400. If there's 2 SKUs, I could see $349 to 400 or $399 to $449. I think it could sway in any direction. I think it would probably be better if they just have 1 SKU for simplicity's sake.
Yeah.
We don't want to confuse any of the consumers.
You.
We've seen how that's went before. Yeah. I think $399 sounds like the right number, though. I have for a long time. So we'll see what happens.
They could do a founders edition like NVIDIA, you know.
Possibly, but I guess you got to think you're selling a lot of this as much as, you know, a lot of the hardcore gamers we're not kids anymore. We grew up, I know me and Brandon grew up with, you know, Nintendo consoles, and that's still the family market's what they're aiming for. So you don't want like a $800 PS5 or Pro or something like that. They're not, that's like their main target. You got to think the family market, so it still needs to be reasonably affordable.
Yeah. And one thing I think right now, they are, I feel like, competing obviously with the current handheld market, which is, dare I say, maybe bigger right now than, it's hard to say because the Game Boy is absolutely massive. It's really big right now with a bunch of companies, right? So we look at like the high end of the Asus ROG Ally X at like $800, and you look at like, you know, the Lenovo Legion Go, I think is like $650, something like that. But you got the Steam Deck and then Steam Deck OLED. Like they are competing, I feel like, with the handheld market. That's where I do feel like there is competition. To what extent, I can't personally say, because if it's $400, they're not going to take a $200 loss on their. Nintendo doesn't take losses on their consoles. They don't like to.
No.
So I don't know. That's the one thing in the back of my head is like, well, how competitive could this be to the current handheld market? We obviously know they're doing it. Asus ROG Ally 2. The X is just a stronger, better version of the current one that's out. We know that these are coming. We know the Steam Deck 2 is coming. Like, how competitive will this be with the handheld market? As far as, I guess,
do they need to be competitive though? Because you look at first party games. They've never gone after this high fidelity, realistic graphics. It's always that stylized. That doesn't necessarily need the hardware, but they've got somewhat of a beef up, especially when you look at the whatever their form of DLS is going to be. You got AI coming along for the upscaling, and then even if it's like a PS4 equivalent in power, for third parties that want to port over or make games for this, it's not an impossibility to deal with that power.
It's not, and I think that. Yeah, I talked about this on the podcast actually a lot too, is that, I kind of implore everyone to, if you don't know about DLSS, do a little bit of research, go on YouTube. There's a lot of great videos out there that will literally give you a split screen view of a game running without DLSS, and then they'll say this is with DLS on, and they will have a resolution
Digital Foundry is great for this.
Yeah, and they'll have a FPS counter, and they'll show you what happens when you turn it on, and it's magic.
Yeah,
right. And you've seen with the 5000 series.
Mm-hmm.
It's just magic what it's doing now. So, I know a lot of people are concerned about the power, right, of it being between a PS4 Pro and a Series S, but it's like, guys, this is without DLSS factored in. And once you really study how this works, I think your confidence level will go up considerably, and then you won't have any concerns.
Yeah, I've been saying it for a long time. The DLSS is a bigger deal than people think. It really, truly is. I've used 3.5. I've got a 4090 currently. I've seen what it does, turned on, turned off. I've seen the difference. It's like night and day.
It's insane.
It's a big deal. But I mean, I guess one of the reasons really kind of to bring that up is these were some of the rumored third-party releases for the Switch 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth, which Rebirth would be insane. I mean,
100%. It was just Steam Deck verified yesterday.
Okay. All right. So Assassin's Creed Mirage and Shadows. Shadows being a brand new game.
Yeah.
Still, yeah.
Yeah. If you're asking me, yes, 100%.
Okay. Metal
You
Gear
think it'll-
Solid Delta, which is an upcoming game.
100%.
No, I was gonna make a meme about like what's gonna come out for Shadows or the Switch 2.
That's a great point.
It is a good point. Yeah. There's a lot of factors
I'm not
there.
worried about. Halo the Master Chief Collection, not worried about that at all. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020.
You think it's coming, right?
Do I think it's coming? Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
It'd be crazy.
Yeah. I'm expecting it.
I am so sure that I'm not a betting person, but I would bet that it is coming. With what Xbox is doing, I have a very, very strong feeling that this will be coming out probably pretty early for the Switch too, as well.
I expect Microsoft to be the biggest third-party developer for Switch 2. And you really got to look at it in that you got to look at all the companies they own now too.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. I think people just think about it and conceptualize, oh yeah, I know they bought a bunch of studios, but it's like, but no, really pull it up online and look at all the IP and really take a close look. And it's wild when you factor all that in. So it would be very simple for them to be the most successful third-party developer on the Switch.
All I'm hearing is we're going to be seeing a new Banjo-Kazooie on Switch 2 at some point.
I actually do believe this.
I believe that.
I truly do. And I've talked about it a lot on the podcast. There's no reason we don't see that. We had Banjo-Kazooie and Smash. Microsoft adores Nintendo. There's a lot of respect there.
Yeah, there is. You saw that with Ori and the different games that came. Minecraft, obviously, on everything. So they had various games.
And that's another game too, Minecraft with the mouse.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Easy. Yeah.
That's a great point. Excellent. And then I guess the last one, Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh, sorry.
which I think is coming. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
No. I mean, that would be insane. Because I guess I had 2 points. One, go back to like 2006 and tell yourself there's a chance that Halo might be on a Nintendo console and your brain would explode.
Yeah.
I know.
It really would. That's a great point. Think back.
Yeah, right.
I mean, never would have thought that.
And I think this is a great possibility because Get Rare to stop working on only Sea of Thieves, and they have so many great IPs that were like back on like the mixture of the GameCube, but especially on the N64, and having them start working on new games of all those IPs they used to work on. Like those games feel at home, or those IPs feel at home on a Nintendo console to me. Like I want to see all their games come back.
Like it's changed a lot. The staff's changed a lot. I think it really changed when the Stamper brothers left. But over the years, I mean, they're just working on back end stuff.
Yeah. I guess at least to that point, just let someone work on the games, right?
Exactly.
Like let someone else use their IP. They're kind of doing that a little bit with Perfect Dark and Killer Instinct before.
Just give the IPs at least a second shot at life, whether good or bad. Give them a chance to breathe.
Yeah, I'll take a bad Banjo-Kazooie at this point. I don't care. Just give me.
We already had one. We had Nuts and Bolts.
Yeah,
I'll defend that game to the end.
Andre, did you like Nuts and Bolts?
I actually did. Once you get past the first 6 hours, which is a lot, I fell in love with that game. So.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan. I was pretty disappointed. I remember playing it. I was just really let down right from kind of the get-go. But
not your typical Banjo, that's for sure.
it definitely wasn't. It was interesting. It was kind of like some of the mechanics, though, that they used with that. It's kind of interesting to see, how that was kind of expanded upon later with other games.
Yeah, I feel like it was ahead of its time. Like had it come out after Minecraft, it might have done better.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I think so, too. Then we've got, so I guess one of the other points.
Hey, for Red Dead, by the way.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I'm going to give you a little prediction. I think Red Dead will be 60 FPS on Switch 2.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. And I think I've said this for maybe about a year. I think it's going to come out on Switch 2. It'll be 60 FPS. And I think there is going to be a native PS5 version released at the same time that will be 60 frames per second. And that's why Red Dead has not received a PS5 performance patch.
I can see that. I mean, that makes total sense.
It's on PS4. It's a PS4 game. I mean,
yeah, good point.
With the DLSS, it would not be hard to have that running at 60, which is great because that's something to look forward to. That's excellent game.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to see I'm trying to think of like what else would, because we've heard Square Enix say that they want to bring their properties to everything, essentially, is what they said.
Yep.
So I see like Final Fantasy 14 coming over to Switch 2. I see. I don't
Visions
know what else.
of Mana.
Legends of Mana.
I see that. No, Visions of Mana.
Oh, Visions, yeah, the new one. Yeah, of course.
Kingdom Hearts. I foresee Kingdom Hearts native releases, not the cloud versions. Nobody wants those. Native versions on the Switch 2 hardware. I expect to get a HD collection, and I expect to get Kingdom Hearts 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And again, like,
that only makes sense to me.
Anything that's running on Series S, I expect to come over. You know, like Indiana Jones. Expect it. And that's an expensive IP.
That's a powerhouse of a game.
It's an excellent game. I'm almost done with it for review, but nobody's buying it on Xbox. The people who are playing it through Game Pass, and Game Pass is stagnant. It's stuck at 34 million.
Yeah.
They're not making money on Game Pass. They need to have 100 million subscribers to make money.
Yeah.
They ain't going to get there. So, they're going to have to figure that out. But obviously that's coming to PS5 in the spring, and I fully expect it to come to Switch 2. I'm playing it on my Series S. It runs great.
Yeah.
No problem. And you got to get that IP everywhere. It's Indiana Jones, and you got to make that money back because it's not cheap.
Yeah.
To rent out that IP.
No doubt. Yeah, I'm playing it on Game Pass or PC. Do you guys remember the rumors a while back? I don't even remember how long ago, about Game Pass coming to Switch 1. Do you guys remember that?
I do.
What's the possibility of it coming to Switch 2?
0. I don't think Nintendo will allow it. I think Microsoft would love for it to be. At this point, I don't think Nintendo would want it on it. It would just compete with them for no reason.
Yeah, that brings up an interesting point. That's a tough one. Yeah.
It's interesting to think about, but I just don't. Here's how I look at it: is like, if say Nintendo says no, but they ask Sony and Sony says yes, and then Sony comes out with a portable, right? Which that's
it could change things. Yeah,
it could change things, and so I think you have to look at it from that angle a little bit. If you're Nintendo, like, well, if we say no, and then somebody else steps in, and now it's on a different portable device, Game Pass, and now we're behind the 8 ball, right? But if that's not a factor, then I don't think it comes to the Switch 2, and I think Microsoft just releases their games physically over here, which is great. I think it's going to do very well.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only way you'd see the Game Pass on the Switch would be Nintendo taking a very significant percentage of Game Passes on the Switch to the point where Microsoft would say no.
We take all your revenue part of it, and then we'll allow it.
Or at least a 50-50 split to make sure it'd be worth our while.
So this is something me and Mark have talked about a lot. But what do we think? So for a couple of games, obviously we know about Metroid Prime 4. We know about Pokemon Legends ZA. What are we thinking about launch titles? And then what are we thinking about those two games specifically, Pokemon Legends and Metroid Prime 4?
As far as cross-gen?
Yeah, cross-gen.
The big question, huh?
Yeah, I mean, are they going to be cross-gen? Are they not going to be cross-gen? Or, I don't know. Are they going to come?
Are they going to play better on Switch too?
Yeah, right. Is it going to be one of those deals? Like for launch, I'm not even entirely sure. Like they showed off Mario Kart 9, but usually, I mean, I feel like we've had such a big long gap from a big 3D Mario game, Super Mario Odyssey. Like I feel like that's got to be probably. I feel like
I expect Mario Kart at launch. 100%.
I'm thinking that as well. Yeah, they showed it off, I think, for a reason.
Yeah,
I do too.
Yeah,
I think they may try to mimic, not directly, because they've already deviated in some ways, but they're kind of like largely sticking to what worked for the Switch, I think. And what worked then was having Mario Kart early on, and then having a 3D Mario for the holiday season, acting for that second launch that we were talking about earlier.
Exactly.
So have a big title for that second round of sales, pretty much.
Exactly. Which I think could open up a huge opportunity here. If Metroid Prime 4 doesn't end up being cross-gen, I think they could try to pull off what it did with Breath of the Wild, where, you know, that is the game that, even if they promote that in the rumored upcoming February Direct for Switch 1, and that also ends up being a Switch 2 title, that all that hype for that game by itself can, you know, help it on Switch 2 and act as marketing for the Switch 2 itself, which they probably don't even need. But point more is, it can really benefit Metroid. Because for as successful as Zelda was before Breath of the Wild, you know, went to the stratosphere compared to the previous game's sales. And this might be Metroid's best chance of finally breaking through that, 3 million sales barrier, I think, by having this be your big single-player focused IP at launch, alongside Mario Kart that'll cater to literally everyone else. I think it just makes sense, and I would almost be a little surprised if it's not, but, you know, you never know.
That is such a great point. I did not think about the part where Metroid Prime 4 jumps up in sales, because it is, look at the numbers just for the trailer. We know it's going to sell like crazy. I feel like they're probably not, I don't even know if they're going to be able to have enough stock out for the Switch 2. I feel like they're trying. I feel like they probably are trying their best, but I feel like for a minute there, it's going to be like the PS5 Series X situation that we saw in 2020, maybe for a moment.
Numbers look good, you know, over 20 million.
Yeah,
that looks good. That's what the proposed numbers are to have prepared for the launch for the first year.
Yeah,
that came out of Bloomberg, I think, a day or two ago, and that's a lot.
I mean, people love Nintendo. I was looking, and just the Alarmo trailer has 2 million views.
God, yeah. Nintendo's done a much better job at increasing their awareness to everyone in recent years. Speaking of that, like that larger launch amount potentially, that's even more reason, I think, to have Metroid there. People are going to want games to play on their new hardware, and they're going to be more open to newer experiences. Metroid's not new, but it will be for a lot of people, just considering how small that franchise is to others. And the Metroid Prime 4, like, you know, is, for one, a good game, and two, is a good showcase for the Switch 2. Yeah, it might be its best shot.
Do you guys think it's cross-gen?
I think that's the big question right there.
That's the question.
They have to be really,
because it restarted development. You have to consider that it restarted development. But I looked at the timetable, because I was curious about the DLSS and what was being used on that for Metroid Prime. They're a few months apart. Metroid Prime 4 started its development a few months before DLSS even came out. So that's one thing to take into consideration. So I was like, oh, they're just going to maybe just drop this on the Switch 1 and then use DLSS to make it look better on the Switch 2. But they did start,
which would be a good way to sell Switch 2, actually, by
that's
showing
what
people what it does.
Yeah,
but it's also the other side of, I think the game itself would benefit from, and I'm biased because I'm a huge Metroid fan, but the game would benefit from only being on the Switch 2 with not having to worry about old hardware. Because I do think with a game that you want to not only showcase, but a game that could definitely benefit from it would definitely be held back by old gen hardware that's like a decade old at this point.
Well, it's like the conversation with PS4 and PS4 games still coming out, right? Like I don't personally like that, because it's like, I want this made for the native hardware that we are currently at in this current generation.
Yeah,
we're already halfway through, and we're still getting the PS4 games, meaning those PS5 games are actually just PS4 games, essentially upscaled and can run a little better.
The problem with that is, would you want to play it in a subpar way, or only play it on hardware that could actually do it justice with a game like that? It's a hard balancing act.
I think.
Metroid
for Metroid, great. knowing the history of Metroid Prime and the sales history and the struggles, if you're going to have a game be cross-gen, I think you have to do it with Metroid Prime 4, because you have to take advantage of that 150 million install base, whatever it's going to be at by the time it launches. I really think you have to tap into that. But I also expect the marketing and promotions team to pull out all the stops. For instance, there's the rumored February Direct, which I believe is happening. Right? I believe Metroid Prime 2 and 3 will be coming out prior to Metroid Prime 4 in the lead up. And if you're a Switch owner, you're going to want to be able to play Metroid Prime 1 through 4 on your Switch.
Yeah.
You don't want to feel like you have to upgrade.
Obviously, these people got to have access to these games.
Yeah, but if you take advantage of that 150 million, whatever it's going to be at the time, and it's a launch title on Switch 2, and it's performing better on Switch 2, that gives you the best possible opportunity to finally break out and do something special and go up into that upper echelon. So that would be my guess. If we're going to have a cross-gen game, it's got to be that. But I think you got to be really careful after that, because if you start doing cross-gen with too many games, it can be very slippery slope. Yeah, I mean, because then you got the Animal Crossing community. Yeah. Well, why can't you release this on Switch 1? It's not a graphically demanding game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but that's how they'll look at it, right? Not factoring in anything else. They'll just be like, "Wow, the graphics aren't great. Can't this run on Switch?" I think you just want to be real careful and just kind of do things the way you had with Zelda, obviously being a cross-gen game multiple times. And go that route. What do you think, Andre?
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, those people are going to have those complaints. I think almost no matter what, but especially if there's more cross-gen. I think it makes sense for Nintendo to, continue to support the Switch for longer than they typically do. Like, that's a massive install base that even if everyone tries to get Switch 2 right away, they're not going to be able to. And that's not going to happen. Some people just bought the Switch in the last year. A good amount of people still are buying Switches. Yeah, they're not going to upgrade the Switch 2 for years to come. And I don't think it makes sense to completely turn your back on that market. So I think cross-gen in some instances will continue to make sense. Like the new Mario Party Jamboree, that game looks completely fine. I don't need it looking better on Switch 2. So whenever the next Mario Party comes out, I'm fine if that's cross-gen. You know? But when it comes to your biggest games, like your AAA titles, like the 3D Mario or the new Zelda, then those probably should be the ones that are locked to Switch 2. But I think there's plenty of instances, especially for Nintendo, where they could release games cross-gen, give enough benefits on Switch 2 that is still clearly better without compromising their original market. But, I don't know to what extent Nintendo will actually do this or not.
To me, when I think about this, I think actually that Pokemon Legends EA is a bigger discussion on it, because that game sold great and people loved it, but it for sure, and then you look at Scarlet and Violet, that's a whole other story, but it for sure still had issues. It had some problems. It had a lot of pop-ins, a lot of stutters. It was not a perfect game. It was a very good game that I absolutely loved, but it had a lot of problems. And so I wonder if Pokemon Legends EA is exclusive to the Switch too, because it is Pokemon. They want to sell the Switch. I just feel like there would be a huge downgrade there. They're not going to be able to make this look that it's not going to perform better really than Legends Arceus, I wouldn't think, on Switch 1.
Unless I think the other issue is they're just poorly optimized games. They didn't put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah, I think Game Freak will find a way to have it run poorly on Switch 2 even.
Yeah, it just felt like the game was designed from the ground up poorly.
As like a big Pokemon fan, I hate that. I if I'm being kind of greedy here, and obviously we have to consider everybody, we have to consider all the audience. I personally would want to see everything only on Switch 2, and that it's developed for that hardware. But that's just being a hardcore gamer, hardcore Nintendo fan that's planning on buying this day one, and that's that. It's like what Sony has done way too long with the PS4 stuff, like way too long. So many of these games have been developed for the PS4 and then brought over to the PS5, and it's like, are you kidding me? We're this
like
long
5
into
years
the life cycle and still going on.
Yeah, no, I get that. Like, we're all going to buy the new Switch 2, right? So we all, we want the game to look as good as possible. But in this specific case, especially, I think Pokemon, maybe with an exception, they're usually not too quick to the new generations. Like, they usually hold on to the previous one. Yeah. And I think with this game in particular being announced for, already for Switch 1, I expect they will, continue to stay on there primarily. Maybe there'll be Switch 2 variant or SKU, whatever it is. But regardless, it's going to work on Switch 2, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think they just want to hit the biggest demographic possible. I think, especially with new Pokemon fans coming up all the time, I don't think they're particularly discerning when it comes to graphical capabilities. And I think they'll buy it no matter what it looks like. So
for sure. I mean, like Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon came out when the Switch was out. And what else was there? Black 2, White 2 came out when the 3DS was already out,
right,
stuff like that. So I definitely understand point. So I guess kind of one of the last things here I was sort of thinking of talking about was Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. I think all of us have gotten to play it except for ThunderStash, right? But you've obviously played the.
Wait, despite the shirt, you didn't play the new Donkey Kong game?
Yeah, you know what? I obviously I beat it on Wii.
Yeah.
And
for me.
Very familiar with it. But no, you know what? It's been and I'm sure you know, because you just came from a podcast, Andre, but it's been nonstop with podcasts and news the last couple of days. And honestly, I'm at the tail end of Indiana Jones for review. And that game is
it's good.
That's something else, man.
It's good, man.
I need to play more of it, yeah.
I'm going to play a trailer here that obviously we can still talk of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. But I have made it to World 3 at the final boss. So I haven't started that boss yet. Mark, you picked it up, right?
I picked it up, but I haven't had the chance to play it, unfortunately. Sorry, work's eating up my entire week.
That's understandable. Andre, you've gotten to play it, right?
Yeah, I streamed a good chunk of that game actually a couple of days ago, and that this game was a big reason why a lot of people were thinking Switch 2 wouldn't happen this week, because why would you suck out all the air in the room from Donkey Kong, when you don't have to? But Nintendo works in mysterious ways. Yes, I've been playing it. I've always liked this game. I don't think it's as good as Tropical Freeze, which is one of the best platformers of all time. But this game is still good, still holds up, but it also doesn't really add anything new. I guess, a handful of 3DS stages if you didn't play that version, but if you did, then there's truly nothing new here except for the HD visuals. I think just and I think, overall, I think it's a good looking game still. It's an art style that holds up. It looks good in HD. Just, as one who is a big fan of Donkey Kong in general, and and Nintendo, of course. But I am a little perturbed a little bit by some of the missing effects here, especially when you're charging, full price.
Yeah.
Like I noticed in level 2, I think, or 3, like there's a sun that appears briefly in the Switch version, and it just disappears. I don't know where the sun went. It stays there on Wii. I'm like, where'd the sun go? And I'm like, and it's just little details like that. Like, even if the game still looks fine, most people won't even notice them. I'm like, if you're going to charge full price for this, you should at least have it match the visual quality of the original version, and it didn't. So in principle, it annoys me. And if I weren't covering it, I would have just gone back and replayed the Wii version if I really wanted to. But putting that aside, if you haven't played this game before and you don't have any other versions of it, it's fine on Switch. Pick it up; it's still really good, unless you don't own Tropical Freeze, in which case you should buy that instead and play that game. But that game is amazing.
Tropical Freeze is fantastic. One of the best platformers ever. It just controls so tight and so well. It just feels perfect.
Yeah.
This still runs. This is great. It still performs good, and I mean, it still is kind of. It's a little looser than Tropical Freeze, if that makes any sense at all. And this is like the unperfected version of that game.
I need to go back and double check. I don't know if it's just me, but another friend had the same issue too, where in the Switch version, I have the occasional issue where I'm like trying to either roll or ground pound and to do the opposite thing I want. And I don't remember that happened on Wii or not. So I don't know if that's a new issue or an original one, but it is bugging me regardless. Whereas I don't recall that issue.
I've had that issue a couple of times as well. And I don't remember it on the 3DS one either. And I just replayed that again, I think in 2021. And I don't remember that issue. I definitely don't remember it on Wii, but I could be wrong. It could have been an issue there. I don't know. But I think overall, if you haven't played it and if you haven't picked it up before, it's a great pickup. It's a great play. But I'm pretty irritated at the $60 price point. I think it's crazy. Honestly, if I didn't plan on streaming this and doing stuff with it, I would not have picked it up yet. I would have waited for a price drop, but I also wanted the pre-order bonus, which was kind of silly.
Is it the GameStop one? Yeah.
Oh, I'm a sucker for DK barrels or any kind of barrel. Cool. I won't grab that.
But it's like that was part of the reason that sold me at getting in at launch, and it's like that's great. Got a DK barrel now. Yep.
That's awesome. That was worth it.
Somebody said yes, ground pound can sometimes auto roll, it seems. So
right,
like,
what's that about? Like that's not good. Especially in this game. Like this game is already hard enough, and it is pretty precision based. Like you can't expect to be standing still to roll off a cliff. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. I'm looking forward for you playing it, Mark, because Mark has not played one since Donkey Kong Country 2?
Yeah, it's way back. Old hardware.
Ignore everything I said. You're gonna have a great time.
Yeah, no, I've had a lot of fun playing through it again. It's just there's a couple of things that's kind of irritating about that, but I guess the last thing that I kind of wanted to bring up that was non-Nintendo, since we did pretty much cover just Nintendo for this episode, was it kind of came out that a PlayStation executive, Shuhei Yoshida, has said he would have tried to resist Sony's controversial live service video game push. Mm-hmm. Yoshida was the president of SIE Worldwide Studios for Sony Interactive from 2008 to 2019. They told this to Kind of Funny Games that Sony always knew its investment in live service games was risky. So we obviously knew about the Last of Us thing that got canceled. We saw Concord, what happened there. Apparently, which this is one that I didn't know at all. I don't think anybody knew about it before, right?
No.
God of War being in development from Blue Point, which is crazy to me.
It's a shame because you could have been working on a Bloodborne remake.
Right.
Basically what everybody's been wanting.
Well, yeah. I kind of had the thought that they were just going to run through the Dark Souls games again because they're so popular. I mean, they did the Demon Souls remake, which is fantastic. I just suck at Soulsborne games. I buy and play every single one of them, and I've only ever beat Dark Souls 2. I know. I suck. I'm a terrible gamer.
Man.
They're difficult. So I guess technically Elden Ring, I haven't played DLC yet, so that's two. But yeah, God of War title in development. What would that have been like? Ascension? Do you think? Did anybody play God of War Ascension?
No. Was that them? What was that one again?
It was a spinoff on the PS3. Well, like semi spinoff, I guess. Okay. Just based on the game, me trying to think of a God of War multiplayer game is kind of wild.
Yeah, the idea just sounds fundamentally flawed. I don't know what they were thinking there. I mean, live service games are hard enough to make, seemingly, but especially when you pair it with IP, doesn't really seem to make sense. I guess they were just like, this is a big IP, it'll do well, but exactly. I don't think it's that clear cut, which Sony eventually started to realize, it seems.
Yeah, it's not like it's a rich single player driven IP,
right?
And
that's
to do that, man,
it's doing very well. Don't screw it up. Yeah, you know what I mean. Don't screw it up. Like these last two God of War games have been excellent games. Don't screw it up. That's what I have to say about it. I mean,
I gotta wonder how many developers have live service games in the works right now that are really starting to question if they should proceed or not.
Yeah,
because
probably a lot.
I would imagine a lot too.
I think just because of 2020 and COVID, I think because a lot of people picked up consoles, because people were home, they had more time to play this stuff. So the user base was just significantly higher. And they saw that. They were like, whoa, look at all these people that are playing Fortnite and all these other games that we got. We gotta take advantage of this. And they're stuck there. It seems like PlayStation developers, even Xbox developers at the time, are always like 4 years behind as far as the trends.
Plus, game development takes forever. Long.
Yeah, game development takes forever. That's fair, but it's like they are so behind. That's why you don't chase trends to begin with.
That is why. That's why you
Actually,
just try and be creative and make your own trend instead of trying to copy formulas.
Kind of to that point. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
I was just going to mention how Nintendo kind of did their own live service game, but in a very Nintendo way with F-Zero 99.
Yep.
And that, obviously that game's no Fortnite. It's not blowing up like that, but I think it's doing well for what it is. It has a dedicated community. They've been constantly updating it for over a year now.
Constant updates.
Yeah, it's great, which is, again, unusual for Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and it looks like it does. It looks like a 16-bit game. Nintendo's like, we're gonna make a live service game, but we're gonna do it cheaply, and it's gonna be awesome, and people are gonna love it. And they nailed it.
They did it the right way. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I play it at least once a week because I collect the coins where it says you got to play an online multiplayer game. Right. So I always choose that as my game, and oftentimes each week it'll be like an F-Zero thing as well. But I replay it, and I'm just like, this is such a good idea. I mean, even Tetris 99 I thought was excellent. Obviously, the Mario game that got canceled, unfortunately.
Well, hey, it might be back, right? Because, we got the 40th this year.
Good point.
That's true.
Pretty nice.
I would like him to. I thought it was great.
Yeah, but I guess I just wanted to say I was interested in your thoughts because I happened to be watching a video today on YouTube while I was driving. It was a Asmongold video reacting to another video talking about how live services are the bane. Like live services alone are like the problem. But the idea was brought up that it's not necessarily the live service that's the problem, but a lot of these games that fail, they're just bad. Even if they were single player games, they're just bad games. Like that's the problem. Like Fortnite, as much as I don't care for the game, it's not succeeding because it's a live service game. It's just a good game that so happens to be a live service game.
Yeah.
I know, like a lot of these games that seem to fail, whether it's, sorry, I had to pull it up for a second. I immediately forgot. It was Babylon's Fall or Concord. Like these aren't, they didn't fail because of the live service model, which obviously plays a role into it, but they're just bad games at their core.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Well, I mean, we got to bring up the big winner when it comes to this, Suicide Squad.
Yeah. It didn't fail because of the live service. It's just a bad game.
Yeah, well, I think they're developing games with the live service model front of mind instead of actual good creative ideas to make a good game. So that's what happens when you think about money first. It shouldn't be about money first. Like when you sit down to create a video game, you shouldn't be sitting down and saying, all right, how can we get the most money out of the consumer? It usually doesn't work that way. If you make a really good game, the money will follow.
Yeah. What I think is like, how many of these do you have to do bad before you get one good? Because the last one I think that did, besides Marvel Rivals, which is doing very, very crazy numbers, absurd numbers, Helldivers 2 for PlayStation. So how many failed attempts do you have to have for one to be successful and be okay and make your money? Because to me, it's like if you fail a 5 and you get one that's successful, that's not enough.
Probably not. Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. I mean, I think it's it's a complicated issue, I think. But yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, there's nothing inherent about the live service model that is keeping people away from these games. They just often are bad. But I think also, though, there is an element of it where you have to reach a critical mass with these games for it to make any kind of financial sense. And most of them aren't able to, but I think it is a very competitive space where there isn't that much room for all these games to survive, to exist together, and of course Fortnite's a big one, and that's sucking up a lot of space. And not every game can be Fortnite, especially with so much of Fortnite's success being on, not obviously not to take anything away from it, but a lot of what Fortnite is known for is bringing together all these other IPs. Yes. And how many times can you do that, right? Dead by Daylight's done that for the horror space, but there's only so many unique ways in which you can do that. And I think it becomes even more difficult, looking at it from that angle.
As more successful ones do come along, which isn't many, like add in Helldivers 2 and Marvel Rivals there, I feel like the less that can be successful because you've already got people sucked up for those type of games.
Right.
And that's just, kind of how I feel about it. But
I look at the time too, the time investment. How much time do you have to play these live service games?
Yeah. You got to dedicate time. They got daily goals that you got to do and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you might have other games you want to play, like single player games. And if you have like more than one live service game, you're not going to have time to do that.
No.
And do the other things in life that you need to do and that you should probably be prioritizing at some point.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's interesting, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what PlayStation does kind of moving forward, because I think Concord really flipped the script for them. I feel like it had
$200 million on that.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money.
Crazy.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of different numbers.
A lot of people have to be fired. That's a lot of money.
The whole thing, like, it was around for like what, a week or something before they shut it down, or
it was quick.
That's absurd to me. The fact that they like those numbers must have been god awful for them not even to give it like really a chance at redeeming itself.
And really I don't know about you guys, but when I saw it, same with Suicide Squad. When I saw the trailer, both of these games, I said to my girl, I'm like, I guarantee you this game is going to fail so bad. It's going to flop. Like, you can just see it. It was obvious. And even with Concord, like, right, you remember seeing that first part of the trailer, right?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this looks interesting. It's
cinematics.
Guardians of the Galaxy vibes a little bit. And then you see, oh, it's a live service game.
Mm-hmm.
Instantly, I'm not interested. This is not what I want.
It felt like with that one too, the weird thing was they were really wanting you to care about the story of these characters. Like,
with that trailer,
like they were really wanting you to care. And like for a live service game, people do not care. No. It's like with Call of Duty games. I mean, I know people, they don't touch the campaign.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I remember I had a friend that used to argue that, maybe he's right. I have no idea. I never looked into it, but he used to argue that people bought Call of Duty mostly for single player. I'm like, I'm pretty sure they don't. I'm pretty sure most people are buying it for the multiplayer. And, I'm sure there are some that are playing it only for single, but I think
I love the campaigns, but I can tell you everybody I know in my circle of people do not touch the campaign.
Right.
Yeah, same here. I love the campaign. I played Black Ops 6 campaign, reviewed it. Absolutely loved it. But I played it because it's on Game Pass and I have Game Pass, right?
Yeah.
I would not buy that for $70 just to play the campaign. I would wait till it's, $20 years down the road and play it.
Yeah. How far back do you have to go before people actually cared about the campaigns in those games?
Yep.
For sure. Yeah, I'm with you, but we appreciate having you guys on. Thank you so much, ThunderStash, Andre, for hanging out with us tonight. Thanks everybody in the chat for hanging out as well. Of course, we'll be live again next Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then for anybody watching this live, sorry, audio listeners, you're always late to this, but me and Mark will be streaming tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as well, playing Warhammer. Right, we're playing Warhammer.
Yeah.
Okay, playing Warhammer Space Marine 2. So everybody is welcome to a bunch of these streams that we're doing. We're doing community stream stuff that, anybody can play and stuff. I've been trying to do that as much as possible. So you're definitely welcome to join in.